So I thought that was a perfect song to start this talk. You have the power to change the world. Who has the power to change the world? Let's do that again. Who has the power to change your world? What are the two most powerful words you can say? Isn't that right? Isn't that where your power is? Now, what can you say after you say I am that you can believe? Can you believe you are love? If you say you are love, are you judging yourself? You can't do the two together, can't you? They're contrary, right? So if you say, I am love, and the next minute you go, oh my God, my nose is a little crooked, that's not being very loving, is it? Oh, I am love, I wish my hair was full and back. There's a difference between I wish my hair was full and back. You know, at my age, I just don't have a lot of hair in the back of my head. That was not a judgmental statement, wasn't it? Was it? See, we can say things without judgment, and that's really the key thing. We've got to start asking ourselves, how do we shift the tonality and the intention of what we're saying? Because most of the time, when we're saying things, we're saying it from an unconscious perspective, one that we blindly have accepted in our lives. So today we're going to be talking about this idea of the law of mental equivalence. We talk about this all the time. We talk about this all the time. So what does this mean? The law of mental equivalence means that everything that is consciously and unconsciously embodied in our thinking tends to radiate an atmosphere which automatically attracts to itself. Do you get the meaning of that? If there is a thought atmosphere that is created by our unconscious and conscious thoughts that creates an energy field around us, a magnetic force, so to speak, so a magnet that is like us is what? It is attracted to us. But that which is not like us is repelled away. So it's Father's Day today, is that right? Guys, have you ever gone on a date with someone and the person was so good looking, you were willing to sell your soul to the devil to have a good experience with this individual, weren't you? Have you ever been there? If you've been there, raise your hands. Both hands. Look at, we've even got women in the front raising their hands. We're an all-inclusive community here. And then we go on the date, and what do? We're not ourselves. We try to be that person we think that person wants us to be with. And we subordinate ourselves to that individual. Sometimes we've subordinated ourselves so much that we end up taking it, fooling the other person, fooling ourselves, and we do this thing called the sacrament of matrimony. And we marry the individual. Anyone here been in a relationship with someone that they're no longer in with? A whole bunch of us. Because it's the way things are. And we go in there because we've never been authentic. We've never been real. So what are we putting into the law of mental equivalence? A false image. And guess what? The law of mental equivalence, takes that false image and it gives us what it is. The law doesn't judge. It doesn't think what's the best thing for me. It gives us what our image is. That's the ability of freedom. Think about that. The greatest gift we've got is our ability to be free, and how we think is how we engage in the use of that freedom. And it's our thoughts that attract to us. So all the work we ever have to do is in our own mind. We don't have to change anyone else in the world. Take a deep breath. Doesn't that free you to realize you don't have to change anybody? The only person you have to work on is yourself. Whoa. That's a lot less work. Think about it. It's a lot less work. And that work can pay dividends. The other work of trying to change the other person, it's a lose, 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 lose situation. I tried it. It didn't work. I tried it with this woman over here. It didn't work. I tried it about 3,580 times with that same woman. It didn't work. But it took all those times for me to get it through the consciousness that I blindly accepted from society that my wife would make me whole. Because that's what we're taught. Hey, where's your better half, right? Hey, you need that person to make you whole. Hey, I'm not complete unless I'm with her. Oh, she grounds me. He grounds me. We do this, we do that. That's all BS that we blindly bought into. That is the domestication of the human race, getting us to believe that we're not whole and perfect as we are. Do you get that? And so when you've been domesticated and you have a false belief and you're living to that false belief and you're constantly failing over and over and over again, you go, oh my God, I'm in despair. And that's why so many people are taking drugs, antidepressants for this, antidepressants for that, because we won't go out in the world and be ourselves and say, I'm okay being me. It's good to be me. You know, it's really good to be Lee. I'm going to say it to you. I love being Lee. Now the question is, do you love who you are? Say, I love being me. Just as I am. And I let go of all false expectations that I may have let into my life. And I am now 100% responsible for how I feel wherever I am. Ooh, do you feel power? You got to, because that's where your power is. It's in that idea. We've got to let go of the illusion that's out there that we've got to please other people. Poppycock. I want you to know that I, this week, stepped into the political arena. Yes, your minister did. Because I am not a Democrat. I want you to know that. I am not a Republican. I am not a libertarian. Do you know who I am? Lee Wolak. I am Lee Wolak, and Lee Wolak is for children. I am for our children, and I will not stand for anything that takes these children and traumatizes them for the rest of their lives. I will not stand for that. I will stand for the children, and I don't care who I stand up against. Not only do I voice that, but I contact the people who are responsible for making change. You see, empowerment and building a mental equivalent is not just having the vision, it's about stepping into the actions that will generate change. Are you following me here? That power is where? With me. It's with you, no one else. You got to find out, where do you stand in life? And start living from that power. Whatever the issue, live from your power. The key thing is, don't make anyone wrong. Stand for something. I'm standing for healthy, vibrant children. That's what I'm standing for. I'm not against anything. Do you hear that? There's a power in that. I am building a mental image that is for something. Ernest Holmes talks about that all the time. Whatever you do, be for something. Don't be against something. Because when you're against something, you attract what you're against. All I want is healthy children in my life. And so yesterday, everyone in the house of God, our friends Bob and Ann are visiting, they left. Jean left. Stephen left. I'm home all alone. Oh, poor Reverend Lee. You're all alone. And I was feeling good. And what happens? The phone rings. I pick up the phone, it's FaceTime. Who's on the phone? But my grandbaby. And she's there, and she's just kicking. You know how babies do this kicking thing? I can't do it while I'm standing up. And cooing now. She's doing the cooing thing. And I'm there going, this is good. And she's looking right at you, and she knows the energy, because when I held her, what did I say to her? I said to her, you are whole, perfect, and you're complete. We should be saying that to ourselves all the time. I am whole, perfect, and complete. There's nothing wrong with me. We're building a mental image. We can take right now the past. Take the past. If you were in a bad relationship in the past, let it go. If you had an issue of some form of addiction, of shopping, of sex, of drugs, of eating, whatever the addiction you might have in your mind, let it go. Right now, this moment, right here, right now, this moment, I'm perfect and I'm whole. That's what we've got to live in. That's why they talk about the power of now, because the power of now is in this moment. And when we realize in this moment we are one perfect, whole, and complete being, we're free. We are absolutely free in this moment. You get that? Right now, there's nothing that you should have on your mind that is bothering you. Nothing. Because in this moment, nothing matters but you being fully present and aware right here, right now. Ernest Holmes goes on to say, we have a definite content of unconscious thinking, of unconscious expectation, of unconscious frustration, of unconscious desire, and this, as much as the conscious thoughts that we're doing, creates because it's operated by the law of life. So we have all these unconscious desires, these ideas, these intentions, all of these unconscious beliefs. How much of what we're thinking is unconscious? 95% or better. So think about it. What you're desiring, is it really something you consciously chose to desire, or do you just blindly accept it? Blindly accept it. I had the desire to have a six-pack, and I don't mean beer. Because I was told in the gym, if you have a six-pack, you're the cat's meow. Do you know, I've been in the gym for 46 years. I eat so damn healthy, and I do not have a six-pack. I have a flat belly, but you realize here's the unrealistic expectation for me about a six-pack. It means I have to get to 7% body fat. Do you get that? That's what you have to get to. You have to get to 7% body fat. Do you know what that means? It means starving. Starving. I'm a freaking vegan, for God's sakes. I don't eat processed foods. I eat healthy. I had an expectation that I bought into of someone out there that I blindly did. Yeah, you know where it was? It was at Larry North's gym in Highland Park. That's where I got it, because everyone there was talking about, you got to have the six-pack. So I was there one day. This is going back, we're now in 1993. And back then, I was eating meat. Lots of meat. I mean, every meal had meat. 6 meals a day, steak, chicken, turkey, steak, chicken, turkey. No vegetables. I'm a vegan now, but no vegetables then. And you're there, and I was 215 pounds at that time. I was into the bodybuilding thing, and I got onto the sled. You know the sled that you leg lift on? And it was a max day. And at that time, I had a workout partner by the name of Miriam, who was a good friend of mine. We worked out for 10 years together. And we loaded up the sled, 11 plates on each side. Now, a plate is 45 pounds. So think about how much weight that is. Now, when you're going to push that weight, you've got to be tuned in, tapped in, turned on so that you can do it, right? So I get up there and I got that weight up. I get it off the rack. I let it down. And when I got it down to here, it went. All the gas in me came out. And there was nothing you can do. And what happened? I laughed, and the weight came down. Not only did I laugh, but the whole gym was cracking in hysterics. Do you think I was embarrassed? No, guys aren't embarrassed when they toot. Let's just be honest about that. It's women that are embarrassed. I share that with you because I bought into the mental equivalent that I had to push over 1,000 pounds in order to be a guy, in order to be strong. I didn't. It was absolutely one of the silliest things I've ever done. Think about how much weight that is. Do you think our body was meant to do that? No, not at all. Here's the thing. I'm using guys today because it's Father's Day. Think about the gym. When a guy walks into the gym, what is the one exercise a guy will do and measures himself on more than any other exercise there is? What is it? Always the bench press. Can you do 225 on the bench press? It's the stupidest measurement we could possibly have. First off, as I learned from a friend of Ann and Bob, is that the guy who created hammer strength, Gary, talked about you don't ever want to do any exercise on a bar because you're eliminating the use of the peripheral muscles. You want to do it, if you're going to do the bench, you do it with dumbbells because this way you've got all the muscles engaged. You're doing the peripherals, not just the one muscle. You want all. Think about that. You don't want one area of your life to excel. You want all areas of your life to excel in. Do you see? But we get focused at, men, I'm going with the men thing today. Men are focused on, I got to be great at my career. I got to be great at my career. I got to be great at my career. And a lot of men excel at their career. And what happens? They neglect their bodies. They neglect their spirituality. They neglect their mental growth. They neglect their relationships. They neglect everything but the work. And with the work comes the money. And then they're there. And then they get old and they retire. And they're dead in 2 years after retirement because they haven't taken care of their body. They've never lived. They bypass their children. I want you to know that I was on that corporate path. The one thing that came to me, though, is I had a value to be a father. And so even though I was working as an executive in the insurance industry, I never gave up time with my children. I coached soccer for, it was 16, 17 years. I missed maybe 2 of my kids' games in their entire lives, whether it was soccer, football, whatever it was. I was always there for my children because that was my value. And what I've got is, and my friend Debbie brought this up to the other day. She said to me, why are you still following Dr. John Demartini? Haven't you learned everything you can possibly learn from this gentleman? And I thought about that and I reflected back and I said, Dr. John Demartini is so focused in the area of human behavior that I've never met an individual that's as focused as him there. So him being so focused there, there's a wisdom there that I don't have, and so I want to absorb that wisdom. So then it became, so where am I in this spectrum? You start to analyze, where are your strengths? And you start to do this because you want to make sure you've got the proper mental equivalent, right? I realize that of all the people I know, I think I'm probably one of the most balanced. In other words, when I look at my health, when I look at my wealth, when I look at my relationships, when I look at my spirituality, when I look at my career, I'm very balanced. And what I find happening is that my growth continues to expand, but it's expanding this area, then this area, then this area, and it keeps being in balance. Why do I say it's in balance? Do you know one of the top affirmations I have in my daily life is, I live a balanced and self-created life. It's what I believe is important in life. I believe that we're here to experience all of life, not part of life. Ernest goes on to say, if we are praying for supply, we shall receive that supply, but the supply will be measured as we believe. The quantity of supply must take the mold of our mental equivalent. You've got to create a mold or a mental equivalent of how much you want. If you're sitting there and you're in debt, $50,000, you say, I choose to be a multimillionaire. You're not going to be a multimillionaire. You got to break it down. You got to step it down and say, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm $50,000 debt. I am debt free. That's where your first affirmation, that's where your first set of work goes. I am debt free, because you know you got a debt. You know you can come out of debt. Now you put your plan together. Well, being debt free, that's going to take me $50,000. That's going to take me 3 years based on everything going on. You set that as your goal. Then in 3 years you say, I'm now going to have $100,000 in the bank. And you set that goal and you take actions in that. And then after you get the 100,000, now I'm going to be a half a millionaire. Once you become that, you said, I'm a millionaire. You see what I'm doing, how I chunk things down into believable? Because when you build a mental image, you build a mental equivalent, you've got to be able to have a belief you can do it. Because if you don't have a belief you can do it, the first chance you get, you're going to self-sabotage. That's where most of the time we fail. We set an unrealistic expectation for ourselves and we self-sabotage ourselves. It is through our ignorance that we limit the flow of the divine power in us. However, we can reclaim our power through increasing our awareness that we are one with the infinite, and we can do it now. This is the key. This is why meditation is so important in our daily lives. Meditation is that time when we release these ego thoughts, these limiting thoughts. And aren't ego thoughts limiting? They're really limiting. Our ego limits us. They put a box around what we can or cannot do. We've got to let that go, and that's what meditation does. And then after you do meditation, then you do affirmations or you do your affirmative mind treatment, because when you do it then, your mind doesn't have the binds on it. It doesn't have the limitations on it. It's open to receive a new mental impress upon it, and that mental impress that you put upon it, you do it over and over and over again until it becomes what? An unconscious pattern of thought. And when it becomes an unconscious pattern of thought, it becomes your go-to pattern of thought, which means it's at the depths of your mind, and it is a belief within you, and before you know it, whatever that impress is, you will have. This is so simple, but it takes a lot of work. That's really the key thing. And who can do the work? Only you. You have to do the work for yourself. There is no savior. A lot of times people say, Reverend Lee, I got to meet with you because I know you can fix me. No, can't fix you. I can help shed light. I can help point out things, but I can't fix anyone. The only person I can fix is me, and I got a lot of work to do yet. I ain't got the time to fix you. Does that make sense? I got time to support you, but I can't fix you. Who can fix you? You. The question you got to ask yourself, do I want to be fixed? Before you can even ask the question, do I want to be fixed? What do I want to be? And before you can ask the question of what do I want to be, you've got to ask the question, well, who am I? Because until you answer the question, who am I, and believe that you are an individualized expression of the infinite and that you are whole and perfect right now, and the very creative power that created the universe is responding to your thoughts right now, then you don't believe that there's a power in you, and you don't see the possibility of change happening. That's why the connection to spirit, the connection to oneness is so vitally important, that as we want to expand, we go into that connection. But you don't just stay in that connection all day. There are cycles. The great book that Ronit gave me, Radical Brilliance, talks about that. There's a cycle of 12 o'clock where you're in deep meditation, the cycle of 3 o'clock where you're in the creative mode, the cycle of 6 o'clock where you're in the action steps, and the cycle of 9 o'clock when you're in the releasing steps. And you keep that cycle is going all the time in your life. But what happens for some of us, or all of us, we get into one part of that cycle or two parts, and we stay there, and we forget that it's a cycle to go around. Does that make sense? Sometimes I'm labeled, because Ronit labeled me, I'm in the 12 o'clock segment. I want to be one with God all the time. I love my meditations. I love affirmations. I love that. And then I've got a creative aspect. So how I do that, this is how I'm choosing to see it now. I surround myself at times with people who are creative because I can feed off their energy. Do you get that? And then when I want to get into the doing side is I go see Debbie, our treasurer. Because there's not a more masterful doer in the world than Deb Lilly. I'm just going to tell you that. When I get in and she calls me, and she's got a friggin' to-do list to give me. Can you imagine? She says, Lee, that's not on my list. I can only do what's on her list. After all, she's God and I have to obey. Do you get that? And then when I want to release, I look at my dog. Because my dog knows how to let go of everything. You ever watch a dog? It can do something, you could yell at it, and the next minute it's released it. So what is dog spelled backwards? Amen. So a dog is God's way of telling you, let go. And every day is a cycle, and within every day there are cycles. So embody that. So the question I want to ask before we close this today is, what do you want? And are you willing to invest the spiritual coin to build that image in your mind? Do the work to build that image so it's deeply implanted in the subconscious mind. Put yourself in situations where only that will be brought to you. Surround yourselves with people who will only support that image. Let go of anything that is no longer serving that image of who you want to be. Are you ready to do that? That's the question you have to answer. Because when you can answer that question, you've got the power to change your world. Let's pray.
I want to thank you for joining us today. I'm so grateful that you took your time to watch or listen to this message. If you found this message beneficial, I would ask that you go to our website, agapecsl.com. Once there, click on the donate button and experience the joy of conscious and purposeful giving. Or if you would like, text your gift by simply dialing 972-532-6976. It is through your gifts that we are able to bring this message to you in the world. I would ask that if you like this message, to please subscribe to my YouTube channel under my name, Lee Wolak. Again, I want to thank you for joining me in the Agape community as we learn how to better self-love through conscious living.